Do you want to know how to prescribe applications to your patients for clinical use and make sure they're safe and effective? We're going to cover that right now. Let's take enhance your primary care and learning. If this is the first time we're meeting, I'm Dr. Gandalf of EGP Learning, and in this episode we're going to have a look at a system called ORCHA, the Organisation for Review of Care Health Applications, and they effectively look at the various different apps that exist and analyse them to see if they are safe and effective for you to use as a clinician and give you the method to prescribe them to patients. In addition, in this episode I'm going to give you an offer for 3 months free as a result of using ORCHA, and make sure you subscribe to all of our content to get all the future notifications about this. Shall we begin? Hi EGP learners, so this is the main interface of the ORCHA app website. Effectively it's the main repository where ORCHA keeps all the apps that it's reviewed and looked at for your benefit. There's a variety of different ways you can use this site. So this is the main version that they have, and as you can see you can either search for the apps or you can also look for the top rated ones in various different categories, and as you can see there's a variety there, so top rated smoking apps, diabetes, asthma, that kind of thing. If you look lower, then it's also got the top rated apps themselves. So at the moment, some of the newer ones that they've looked at are things like MediLinked, WISA, that kind of thing, and it's got information about those various different apps. We'll look at that part in a bit later. One thing I would mention, ORCHA can offer this as a white label solution for your particular area or network. So for example, if you wanted to focus on the particular patients in your primary care network or in your CCG, for example, then you can purchase this system and then tailor it to your own practice needs or your network needs or your area needs. You can put your own branding and everything else on there. If you're interested in that, contact ORCHA, the team, directly. It's not a significant cost, if I'm being honest. We have discussed this with them, and they are considering making that more effective for patients, particularly with the increase of primary care networks happening and stuff. So worth looking at. To get the best use of this website is to log in as a clinician. And the reason for doing that is then you are able to prescribe these apps to your patients. Shall we have a look at that? So effectively I'm going to log in, and you're going to skip this part, I'm afraid, guys, so you can't see my details. And this is what it looks like once you've logged in. So you can see a variety of different menu and options kind of thing. So at the top left, you've got your search bar, and then you can also categorize that search depending on particular platforms. The two main ones it focuses on is Apple and Android, clearly the biggest leaders in the market. You can also then select functions and features that you may want to look at for particular applications. Also who the apps are designed for, so particular age categories or that kind of stuff. And then the countries that have been developed for, and also if there's a cost or not. This can be relevant particularly for those working in more deprived areas, or actually if you're just looking for the best resources for your patients. And then lastly, it will obviously sort it down in a variety of different ways, either alphabetically, date, or highest score, that kind of thing. In terms of the other toolbar that you can see, there are other things we're looking for. So you can select favourites. I don't have any at the moment, but you can select some if you want to. Recommendations sent. So I'm not going to show you this because it does provide information that I don't think is appropriate for me to share on this medium. But effectively, it lets you see all the recommendations you've sent and whether or not patients have engaged with that. And this can be valuable in terms of tracking the information that you are offering to patients and whether or not they're actually taking up your recommendations or not. Really useful in terms of healthcare delivery. Then there's obviously other sections like editing your account details that you'd classically expect, and then reviews that you may have given as well as downloads you've done. At the moment I haven't done any of these. Anyway, let's go back to the search section because that's probably the most useful thing. As you can see, there's a variety of different categories that you can look at, or you can look at the individual apps themselves, and it gives you a summary on the main toolbar in terms of what you can look at. So for example, if we look at the smoke-free one, so this is an app to try and help you quit smoking. So effectively, this gives you information about the type of information the app provides, what kind of networks it works with, if it has things like alerts and that kind of stuff, if it uses gamification, or if it uses other kind of things as well. So if we click on that, we'll be able to see a bit more information about this particular app. Important to note, this is an app designed for Apple system, so the iOS system. It does mention that this app, the current version of this app hasn't been reviewed. That doesn't mean to say they haven't reviewed it, because clearly they have, but this would be an older version that they've reviewed. It gives you a variety of information in terms of a summary of the actual app and also their analysis of the 3 key areas, which is data privacy, clinical assurance, and user experience. And it calculates that into a sum that, as you can see here, is 92%. So pretty good. It also gives you some further information about the developer and information about the app. And if you want to download it, you can use the QR code directly from there. Other things it lists is the functions and features. So this is an area you can trim down the search on aspects on. Data privacy is looked at, and it gives you clear information as to the level of data privacy the app has, and clinical assurance, what the app does effectively and what it doesn't do, and commentary on that for you, as well as then some user experience information as well. So for example, one comment on this one is that this app is not entirely free to use, so there may be paid for applications for it. And then lastly, it gives you some information about what the app actually looks like, which can be quite useful to share with patients if you're recommending it. The main use of this is actually you get the opportunity to explore the app in a bit more detail with some clinical variation, with some clinical information that can be useful in terms of, is this something you would want to recommend to your patients? But how do you actually do that? Well, the key reason for having the professional license and using this system is that it will allow you to prescribe the app to the patient. Let's have a look at doing that, shall we? So from this screen, you can recommend the app, but it is the same as if you use the other screen that we saw earlier. So this is the main kind of search area, and you can search for the app. So for example, if I want to recommend the YSAT app instead for an Android patient, you can do that from this. Or as usual, you can just search for a particular app. So for example, we search for Headspace, which is an app that we've reviewed previously. And you need to select which model. So say for example, I'm going to recommend it to somebody with an iPhone. Then you can click the search button. And there we go, it's brought up the Headspace version for the iPhone. One thing that I would like to see in terms of additional functionality is, number one, being able to search for both areas at the same time, because some applications aren't on both mediums. This may not be a regular issue, but I actually do have patients where they have both methods, and being able to prescribe the one that has been validated and reviewed would be more sensible from my perspective. Additionally, I would like the search to work when I press enter as well. Very slight thing, but it doesn't work directly when you press enter. You have to click on the search button to clarify the search terms and stuff. But once you've done that, effectively you can click on the recommend app section. So if I click on that, it brings up a window that lets you select whether you want to recommend this app either by SMS or by email. And then you just input the details for the patient at that point. More often than not, I would probably suggest most people are going to use this by SMS because it sends an instant text message to the patient. You do have to select which country you're sending it to. I guess this is another user experience thing I would like to see improved. If you are, for example, working in the UK, I would like the ability to permanently set it so I don't have to keep selecting the UK every single time. It's just an extra click, I guess, and once you've selected it, you're unlikely to want to change it. And then you type in the number that you want to send it to. So for this reason, I'm actually going to send it to myself, so you can see that. I'm not going to put my number on there though, guys. Sorry, I'm afraid you can't have that. One slight thing to remember, and one thing I've found with using this system, it works a lot more effectively if you do take the 0 out of the mobile phone number that you send it to. So for example, it'd be +44 and then 7 blah 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 rather than +4407. It does work if you do the 07, but it takes a lot longer for that recommendation to be sent to the patient. Maybe that's something to look at. So, shall we have a look at what the app looks like? So we're going to have a look at how you actually use the Orca system when you get the text message as a patient. So as you can see, I've got one here. Simply click on the link and it opens up a window. The first thing it then asks you is to open again and takes you to the web browser, so then you can register with Orca. It's important that patients do this so then they can track whether or not the apps are actually used effectively or not. Important to warn your patients about this. Initially when I started using the system, I didn't realise that. Didn't warn patients and kind of wondered why they weren't using it. It wasn't until a couple of them came back and said, well, I had to register for something else. Actually, it's just the system. Once they're in, it then allows them to download the app quickly and effectively, and also you get to see whether or not they have complied with the recommendation you've made. Very useful information. I don't think that's a problem. If you do, obviously, that's a question for you to answer. Shall we get back to it? So that's how you send an app recommendation to the patients. Ultimately, I do think this is a really good system, and as you can see, it gives you a variety of different elements of information that you can look at. So in terms of ranking the apps, it gives you a criteria, so generally above 65% green, 45 to 65% yellow, and less than 45% red. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad, but it just means that there potentially is areas for improvement. And you may still want to recommend an app because that's the best one for the patient. I think that's the really valuable thing about this system. It provides you so much information about how these apps can work clinically that you can tailor this to the needs of your patients. And that's a really valuable thing. We've mentioned it in previous videos when we've looked at this, that Orca is effectively like the BNF of applications. And just like when you prescribe a medication, you need to find the one that works for the patient, not necessarily find the patient that fits the medication. Because that won't work effectively. I think there is a growing need for this kind of technology and the growing need for this kind of service to help patients and, more importantly, to help clinicians as well. And the site is pretty easy to use. I think there are a couple of tweaks I would recommend making to make the user experience side of it a bit more effective. But as you can see, it works quite nice and it works quite well. What do you guys think? Effectively, we've negotiated a really good bargain for you guys with Liz Ashall-Payne, the owner of Orca. Effectively, you'll be able to get 3 months free access to the professional license that allows you to prescribe apps and have the system to monitor that. After that point, if you find it really helpful and useful, it's simply a £25 annual charge to keep using that system. As a result of that, we do get a small affiliate amount from that, and nothing more than you would pay normally, but as I said, you'll be able to support us as well. And you only pay that if you find it useful. If you want more information, click on the links below, and as I said, engage better with digital primary care, and we're here to support you. As always, feel free to contact us through the links down below as well. And as always guys, keep tech enhancing your primary care and learning. See you later. Bye.